We're on.
Welcome everyone to our weekly class in Derek Tfunos. I always start off with a little introduction, and this time we have, thanks to Avi, Vizio helping us. What's difficult to understand about Derek Tfunos, one of the difficult things is the organization. It's extremely organized, but because there's so many details, it's quite easy to get lost in the trees and not see the forest. So what I'm working very hard on doing is presenting the Sefer in a way that we'll be able to see the large categories, and then the subcategories will fall into place. We're holding in the middle section about Havchanas Benosim, but I'm going to give a little bit introduction so we could, again, as I said, get oriented properly. The Derek Tfunos has three parts, according to my analysis. The first part is how to understand the sugyas of the Gemara. The second part is how to analyze information. And the third part is how to present information. That's going to be really Siddur and Kedim Menachot. We'll be doing that later.
I think really carefully.
The first part, in understanding the Gemara, so the Ramchal said that there was three basic parts of his Sefer to do that. One is to understand the Chelkei Mas and Matan. The second was the Pulsa Seichel. And the third thing that he discussed was the order in which to approach the study. So the Pulsa Seichel, the Chelkei Mas and Matan. So we, the Memeshel Chuvin and etc. The Pulsa Seichel, he told us were three. First, understand statements, their subjects, their predicates, and the different types of predications, and diukim, etc. Then, once you understand statements, you have to have the ability to produce syllogisms, add statements together, and produce new statements from the combination of the two. And finally, the third pula is to bring proofs that things are true or false. And he says that the Chelkei Mas and Matan is all based on these processes, understanding statements, syllogisms, and proofs. And when he brings the third part of this section, and he shows us how to do this activity, he first tells us you have to understand the language of the Mechaber, as it's being said in a simple language or in a rhetorical language, whatever language, or is it a language for Kasha, it really doesn't matter how it's presented. The first thing you have to do is, after you understand how the Mechaber speaks, is to break whatever's being said before you into the, what he calls the Tzur Yashara, just the subject and the predication. And so you have to translate everything into what really is the subject and what's being said about it. After you do that, you have to determine what it's doing here. Is it a proof? Is it a contradiction to what's being said before, etc. And then you have to spell out all the steps. So that's basically the overview of Havanas Sugyas. After you understood the sugyas, or sugya that you're in, then comes the step of analysis, and that's where we're holding now. And he's described 24 different aspects of subjects that you may need when you're doing your analysis. Okay, and we're going to be also giving some examples here, so it'll become clearer how this actually works. Let's go to our text. There we go. I just wanted to show you an early version of Visio, what we just looked at. This was the Ramchal's book, Lashon Limudim, which was published in 1836. Ramchal died in 1747. I don't know if it was the first publication of the book, but here you see the printer is trying to use the Visio method. That's 200 years ago. Baruch Hashem, we have tools that we can do that a little better, but it's clear that the Ramchal wanted to do that, and if he had the tools, he would have done it. So we're not doing anything unusual by organizing the Sefer. Matter of fact, I'm sure if he had it, he would have been doing it too. Okay, so we're involved in analysis. We want to now analyze subjects. And the Ramchal has given us 24 different tools to use. In tool number 10 is SIBA, and it represents a group of points that talk about cause and the various variations in cause. So let's just do a little review, and then we're on our way. We're up to 11, but we'll go back to 10. So number 10 talks about SIBA, which is cause. What's SIBA? V'hi ma shevakocho nolad v'nimsa masuba. It's that which causes the result because of its power. V'yesh bo shnei minim, and he describes two types of causes. One cause he calls a SIBA moledis, the cause that gives birth to something, and the second cause he calls a SIBA poelis, the cause that makes something go. Derech mashal, eitz pri hayotzi mimeno, eitz lepri hayotzi mimeno. The tree is the SIBA moledis of the fruit. Hu SIBA moledis. V'hare ze kamo av shehu SIBA leveno. Shehu hemshech nimshach mimeno. A SIBA moledis is like the father who is the SIBA moledis of his child, which the child is a continuation of him directly. However, the second type of SIBA, the SIBA poelis, is not a hemshech. It's a separation between the artisan and its product. When we have a statement, Azle machmate, in Bab Metzio, someone hits an animal, and the animal goes because he's hitting him. So that's called the SIBA poelis. The man is hitting the animal, and he's causing the animal to go. V'chein, also, chamra v'reichanam pitchim, wine and scents, good-smelling scents, they make a person wise. So those are the things that are SIBA poelis to cause wisdom. V'hare ze k'kol uman lekelim shehu osei. The SIBA poelis is analogous to an artisan that makes a kli. She'eino hemshech mimeno. It's not a continuation of him. It's not born of him. Ach nifal mimeno. It's just something that he works on. So those are the two SIBAs that the Ramchal, SIBA poelis, the Ramchal describes. The next SIBA is Havchana Echad Esrei, is called the MCE. She'al Yedo Poelis HaSIBA Es Pulaso. The MCE, the means, is that which, by way of it, causes the SIBA to do its work. Derech mashal. Efshal Abra B'Kiyur Chamra. You can get, the Kohen can get rid of the filth on his garment with wine vinegar. So wine vinegar is an MCE for the Kohen, who is the SIBA poelis, to get rid of the stain or the filth on his garment. The next type of siba that he describes is called the ma'orer, the siba of motivation, motivating siba. V'hu mashin ma'orer et hapula b'ratzon shifar. It's that cause which motivates the person who's doing the action to do that activity through the act of his will. Derech mashal. Mashmu shema uvo haniskayer. What did Yetro hear that he came and converted? The answer is it was Kriyas Yamsuf Shema. He heard about Kriyas Yamsuf, and that was the Siba Misoreris that awoke in him to do the act of tshuva. Okay, so that's called the Siba Misoreris. Shema Kriyas Yamsuf Hayata She'ira et Yisro Lishyabo. It was the hearing of the great miracles of Yam Suf that aroused Yetro to come and to become Jewish. That's called the Siba, which is the Siba Moreris. So far we've had the Poelis, and that had the Melita and the Poelis, and then we had the MCE, and now we have the Misorer. So let's see the next one. The next one is called the Tachlis. That's 23. V'hi hakavana shemiskavan apol b'puloso. That's the intent that the person has by doing the activity. Perish. Mashu mevakesh lahasig al yedei puloso. What he wants to attain by way of his activity. That's called the Tachlis, and that's also a Siba Tachliti. That's the reason why he's doing it. That's the purpose why he's doing it. For instance, halomed almanat lasos. A person should learn in order to do. So tachliso belimud hu lahasig yosa olse ma'asatovim. The goal of the learning is to do a good act. Now I mentioned, and I'll just show you briefly, this topic of Siba is going to be amplified in Sefer Gaon of the Ramchal, where he breaks down, as you see in this chart, Siba into many more fine gradations. But I just wanted to show you here, here's the Siba Poelis in red, here's the Siba Tachlisis in red, and here's the Chomer, which he mentioned before, not as a Siba, but he mentioned it before, and the Tzura. Those two things he mentioned before. Those were internal aspects that were with the earlier Bechinos. Remember, the Ramchal in his introduction said that certain aspects are internal to a subject and certain are external. So we can imagine, for instance, making a klicheres, pottery vessel. So the internal aspects of that klicheres that's made of a chomer, which is clay, and it has a certain form. Okay, so round, so it can accept liquids. The poel, the person who does it, the Siba Poelis, as we said, he's the human that creates it. That's an external cause. He's not the thing itself. He's outside it that produces it. And the Tachlis is the goal that the Siba Poelis, the person who's doing it for. He may be doing it because he needs to hold some wine or some water. We, of course, won't go into all the details. Those of you that have Sefer Gaon could look up his explanation. Bezrat Hashem, we'll get to the Sefer. I just wanted to show you the practical application. Yes, someone would say something?
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's like a whole new way of thinking of things. and it's going to take some time for it to sink in, because it's we're not used to looking at things and breaking it down in this way.
Right. Now I want to show you that this is not something that we don't do. Here's the Vilna Gaon, his parish on Mishlei. Okay, so Mishlei, the first pasuk in Mishlei says, Mishlei Shlomo ben David Melech Yisrael, ledas chachma umusa, lahavin imrei vina, lekachas musa haskel. That's what the first line in Mishlei says. Mishlei, it's written by Shlomo ben David, who was the king of Israel, to make knowledge and wisdom and musar and ethics, and to understand wisdom, to take wisdom, lakachas musa haskel, to get the point of things. Okay, this is the parish of the Gaon Vilna. He says Mishlei. He says like this: but kol dava yesh, in everything the Vilna Gaon says yesh chomer upoel utzura b'tachlis. Isn't that interesting what the Gra just said? Chomer, poel, tzura b'tachlis. Chomer, poel, tzura b'tachlis. Okay, those are the four things that we mentioned. I mean, the Ramchal mentioned. He broke them up between the internal causes and the externals, and here we are with the Gaon saying it. And here's an example of what the Gaon says. He says, first of all, he says that everything has those four principles. Kamosh kasavti kama pamim, as I said many times. L'chein hu kan, and this is also true in Mishlei. Okay, why? Mishlei hu hachomer shel hasefa hazer. The chomer, it's not the clay of a kli, there's a book in this case, it's an intellectual concept, but he says the material that this book is about is mashalim. That's the first word in the pasuk says. It says Mishlei, so that's the chomer. You have to know that's what we're going to be talking about. Mishlei, that's the chomer, or the form, really, of what this book is in, right? It's the form of a mashal. It's not written as prose. It's written as analogies. Very good. That's what the Gemara says, number one. Hu ha-chomer, shel ha-sefer hazeh. That's the chomer. Shlomo, hu ha-poel. Who is the one who created the sefer? Who's the Siba Poelis? Shlomo ben David, Melech Yisrael. Correct? Ledas chachma u'musala v'yimrei vina. Yeah. Hu tavnisa v'tzuroso v'inyono. That's the tzura of the book. The tzura is to teach us wisdom. And what's the tachlis? The tachlis is l'kachas musa. So should we actually accept the musa that we're reading, that we actually kilo halimudika elamaisa. Actually, we want to do the Torah. We just don't want to intellectually learn about it. It's not a philosophy book. So the goal really is l'kachas musa haskel. So there we are, the Vilna Gaon himself, and he says this many, many times. And once you're aware of this type of analysis and specific language, you'll see it quite a lot in Rishonim, and you'll see it even in a lot of Achronim. So it's very well accepted. The reason why I bring this is for two reasons. One, to show you that we're not doing things that are far away from Torah analysis. It may not be done very commonly in yeshiva world today, but it's has been done, and it's been done by the great Rishonim, and also here we have an Achron, the Vilna Gaon. So it's once you understand these words, you'll also be sensitive to when you see it, like you'll see the rush, and you'll speak about, you'll use this language, and it'll be an active tool. But again, it's not something that you just look at and you grab the first time. It's something that you have to think about and constantly try to apply it. as we said, slow down and try to apply these principles and to think a little. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you that it's well-known principles, and we're not doing anything, the Ramchal's not doing anything that's extraordinary, except what he said was to categorize things and to make them in a accessible unit, accessible system. Okay, so that's our discussion of Siba. Now, when you have Siba, so you have Mesubav. That's the result of the causes. So that's number 14 here. Okay. Mesubav hu hanoled min hanose. The Mesubav is that which is what the nose gives birth to. The nimsa hanose siba lo, and therefore the nose is the siba of the Mesubav, the result. A derech mashal. He goes over the examples we gave. The azle machmateha halicha hi hamesubav shalo. The siba poelis was the person who was hitting the animal. The mesubav was the fact that the animal moved because of that hitting. So that was the mesubav, that it moved. Haben hu hamesubav shalaav. The siba molida was the av, and the ben is the mesubav of that siba moledis. The kli is the mesubav of the uman. We said the uman is the siba poelis. He's not part of the kli. It's not like he's giving birth to a son, but he is because of him, his actions, this kli came into existence. So that's the result. And we see these things are not only used for, and that's why another reason I brought the law, we're not only using these things for physical objects, they're also being used for conceptual objects. And in the last class I gave an example of our favorite Baba Kama, how the toldos are either no lot from the Av, like Tuma, or it's really a dimion that could be Siba Poelis. It's not really part of it, but through dimion we learn it. So these things can also be used as tools. The Sibas can be both physical and intellectual. Havchana Chameshesrei, the 15th type, is called a Meschaber. A Meschaber means it's something that's attached to the nose. And he's going to describe different types of attachments. Let's see how he spells that out. V'hu kol mikra sheyislava v'yischaber v'nose. It's any mikra. Now the word mikra is going to be is a key word. A mikra is something that happens to an object, but it's not the object itself. For instance, a person is a nose, he's an object, and whether he's sitting or standing is a mikra. It has nothing to do, it's not the essence of the person. The essence of the person is a Baal Chai Medaber, let's say he's a speaking animal, but he can be at different times either sitting or standing. So those would be mikram, things that happen to him. He could be tall, he could be short, he could be black, he should be white. These are all, the technical word is an accident. These are things that happen to a subject but don't represent the essential subject itself. So the meschaber are mikrim sheyislava v'yischaber l'nose. They're mikrim, accidents that accompany and are attached to the nose. Nosaf al atzmuso. The things that are added to its essence, like the man is the essence, and if he's working or singing or dancing or learning, those are things that he may be doing. Those are not his essence. Those are mikrim that he may be involved in. Now, the meschaber, he divides yischalak l'shlosha mimim into three parts. Ha'echad, ma shemischaber ba'atzmo shel hanose, things which are attached to the subject itself, two ways. O elav, o elav, or on it or to it. Let's see what that means. Kagon. Hachachma b'chacham. Hakalus b'davakal, v'hakavod b'nichbad. Those are things that are that are attached to a subject. You say a person is wise, or an object is light, or someone is respectable. Now, things, that's L, that's two. Things can be on a subject, like the tzipui ala kli, the gilding on a vessel, or the levush ala adam, or the clothes on a man. Those are mikrim that are not attached to the object itself, but just surrounded. Derech mashal. A behema misukenes, when you talk about a behema misukenes, that's something that describes the behema itself. It's not on like the clothes, but it's L, it's describing it itself. Sheyesh bo mikrim sakana. This animal has a mikra that's called, it's dangerous. Not all animals have it. It's not the essence of animals. It just so happens that this particular animal has that quality. What about a matpachas sharuya b'mayim, a cloth that is being soaked in water? Sheyesh bo mikra zeh shel hiyo sharuya b'mayim. It has the mikra that it's not directly in it. It's just, I mean, it is in it, but it's what I mean. It's not part of it. It just so happens that it happens to be associated with it. So that's the first part. Those are mischabrim that are either attached to the thing itself or surround the thing itself.
So these two examples, the first example would be the olav, and the second example would be the elav. I would imagine.
That's correct. The Ramchal always does that, by the way. He's a master of organization, so if he gives two different subcategories and two examples, they always follow one after another. The sheni, the second type of mikra, or mischaber, hasheni, inyan hamnimsa imhanose bizman echad. It's something that is found with the object at the same time. It's associated with the object at the same time. It's not part of it, it's not around it, it's just associated with it. For instance, pas sha'afa imsli. There's bread that is baked with something that was roasted. So they just happen to be two different objects that exist simultaneously at the same time. But they're not, one is not part of the other here. The point is that they're just together in time. The other example he gives in brachas, kol shehu ika b'mo tefela. When we say brachas, you have an ikar and a tafel. There's two things mixed in a mixture. You say the bracha on the ikar, but the tafel is there too. So the ikar and tafel are there simultaneously. But one is not attached to or part of. It's just associated with, next to it in time. Okay, the third type is called kodem and me'uchar. Things that happen before the subject or after the subject. It's things that precede the subject or come after it. Derech mashal. Notlin liadayim va'achakach mozgin esakos. You wash your hands, and then after you pour the wine. Before you can drink the wine, you have to do something before it, and that's called washing your hands. Okay? So that's an example of things that are don't exist simultaneously in time, but one precedes the other. So those are the general boxes of mikrim. As I said, in Sefer Higayon, we're going to have a lot of refinement of these categories and a lot of reorganization of them. This is really, as he said in the beginning, only is a general overview of the various parts of analysis that one has to apply like we just said with the Groy, you have to think about what is being said, analyze what's being said, in what aspect are we talking about. Okay, the 17th Bechina, I'm sorry, the 16th Bechina, is called Makom, the place that things are at, or Derech Mashal. In Eruvin, Shtei Gezusra Zulam al Mizu, talking about two patios, two porches, one on top of the other. So the place is very, very important. Or Shtei Ayarois Zes Muchalzo, two cities, one next to the other. Those are two places where the Arab will have an afkamina. Or Sarabatim, Zelifim Zel, or 10 houses, one before the other. So these are the placement of objects, how they exist in relationship to one another. Okay, are they above? Are they next to? Are they in front of? So that's called the aspect of makom. It could be each aspect, not all aspects are found in every halacha, not all aspects are significant in every halacha, but we have to know the general categories of all of them, so we'll discuss and then we'll know what aspect we're dealing with. Havchana Shel Asrei, the 17th, is called matzav. Okay, that's the attitude that the object is in the place. Vohu techunas hityatsev hanose b'makomo. It's how the object is standing in its place. Derech mashal. Hakor Megillah Omed V'Yoshev. A person who reads the Megillah is allowed to either stand up or to sit down. So that's his relationship to his space. He's either standing up or he's sitting. Be'erev kol adam yateh v'yikra u'b'boker yamod. When Kriyat Shema, in the Shammai's opinion, at night you should lie down, and in the morning you should stand up and say Kriyat Shema. So that's your attitude in the place that you're in. It has a nafkamina in saying Kriyat Shema. The 18th Bechina is called Tenuah, movement. It's the movement of a subject from one place to the next. Derech mashal pesachem haholech, a person who goes min makom she'ein osen lamakom she'osen, a person that goes from a place that they have a certain hanhaga, and he goes to a place where they don't have that hanhaga. What's his halacha in that change of position from one place to the next? The Havkana Tesh Asrei, the 19th, is called Zman, time. Derech Mashal, for instance, in Brachas, we say Me'enesai Koren Shema. When do you have to start to say Kriyat Shema in the morning? So you notice that each one of any halacha that we're dealing with here, we're going to be talking about a certain aspect of it. Kriyat Shema has a lot of aspects to it. The attitude, as we just said, standing up or lying down, and here's the Zman. So whatever halacha we're talking about, it's good, as you said before, to label what aspect we're interested in and not to confuse that aspect. Be'erev kol adam yitev yikro b'boker yamod. In the evening, a person should lie down, morning should stand up. So there he put together two of the aspects, time and attitude. And so we can have combinations of two here. Havchana Esrim, the 20th aspect, is called Yachas, relationship. V'hu ma she'adam mityaches V'hu ma she'echad misyaches l'sulaso. It's the relationship that something has to something else. For instance, Derech Mashal Doro, Shel, Moshe, Zaro, Shel, Abraham. It's actually two examples. The Doro Shel Moshe, that's the relationship of Moshe to the generation. That's a different example, the same one. Or the Zaro Shel Abraham, or the relationship of the seed, his children, to Abraham. Okay, let's relationship. What is that relationship? Okay. In other words, Moshe has a certain relationship to that generation, and the children of Abram have a certain relationship to him because they're his Zara. The 21st is called a no-say. V'hu keshanidon shilifneinu hu mikra min mikrim. When we see in front of us that someone's talking about a certain mikra, a certain accidental, a certain happening, sheyeh nasu al echad min hanosem, and they're saying, well, this mikra we know applies to a certain subject. V'hine nivakesh mihu noso. And what the Gemara is doing, for instance, is asking, wait a minute, now which subject does this relate to? Okay, so we can be talking about a mikra and saying, hey, who does this belong to? Okay, I found an object. Who does it belong to? It's not the person himself, it's the relationship he has with the object. Derek Mashal, Kesha Amru, Ezehu Dava Shechaluka Tumaso Ben Tumas Meis L'Sheretz. What is it that has a different din between the tuma of a dead person and a reptile? Habe Omer Ze Machteches. If you want to know what it is, it's Machteches. So I talked about a mikra, these two different dinim being different, and I wanted to know what was the no-say of that mikra, and the answer was Machteches. Havchana Esrim Shtayim is called a Dimyon. Now these three go together also. Dimyon, Hevdel, and Hefech, which means comparison, difference, and opposites. 3 units. Havchana Esrim Shtayim is called Dimyon, Derech Mashal. Damya Desasya, talking about a shechita knife that's not kosher, if it's like a wheat kernel, kernel that has a lot of sharp, jagged edges. It's comparable to a wheat stalk. You know, when you rub the wheat stalk the wrong way, you get a lot of ragged edges. Okay, so that's a comparison. Okay, we're comparing our shechita knife to a ragged-edged piece of produce. Cherev, harihu k'chalal. A sword is like a dead person. So we're making a dimion between the sword, the halach of the sword that killed someone, and the actual person who was dead itself as in regards to its tumah. So we're saying there's a comparison between the two, even though they're different objects, but they have a different parable and din. Both these things have the same shiur. So I'm comparing two things, and I'm saying, hey, this A has the same shiur as B. So that's a question of comparisons. Okay. Havchana Esrim v'Shalosh is called the Hevdel. V'hu ha'heder hadimion. The Hevdel, which is the difference, is the lack of what makes things dissimilar, not what makes them similar. Derech Mashal. Shani dam de ikishlamaya. Blood is different, has a different din because it has a hekesh. What makes it different? What's the hevdel from blood and water? Because it has a hekesh to, blood and other liquids. It's different because it has a hekesh to water and other different stuff. The other liquids don't. Or shani eva min achai de ikishladam. The din of Eber Menachai is different because what makes it different than the other dinim is because it has a hekesh to dam. Or in our Mishnah, we said, Lo hari hashor kahari amaba. Lo below zev zesh ruchaim kahari yesh ein bo ruchaim. So the hevdel over there was ruchaim. The maba and the shor have it, and the yesh doesn't have it. So that's the hevdel. So we have the dimyon, what makes two things similar. And then we have the hevdel, what makes them distinct. And the last one is called the opposite. That's 25. That's called the nigud, the opposite. V'hu hefech hadimyon. it's the opposite of a comparison. In other words, the things are not similar. Not only are they not similar, but they are totally opposite. The affirmation of one is the denial of the other one. Okay, so we said the affirmation of day is the denial of night. The affirmation of cold is the denial of hot. Ukvan is borish lamala, hanigud b'kol minav vehevenu mashlehem ayin sham. Okay, if you look back and when we spoke about the various types of statements, so there the Ramchal told us all the different types of opposites, complete opposites, partial opposites, opposite terms, opposite statements. And he told us all the rules. The affirmation of one is denial of the other unless it has a means, and then you have to deny it. And then the affirmation of one can only be denial of the other. I mean, the denial of one is the affirmation of the other only if there's no means. If there's another means, so you have to deny both the extreme and the means in order to affirm the other end. Okay, so those are all the laws of opposites. Okay, it's a mouthful. It has to be gone over, has to be thought about, and it has to be applied. Okay, we're now limited amount of time. We can only do what we can do. So really, it would be very, very good to take time, a lot of time, and to that's why I stick on this Baba Kama, because there you can then ask yourself, where's the Dimion, where's the Hefech, where's the Sibra Poelis, who's the Sibra Poelis, you have animals there, man there, what's the Nesuba, what type of Nezik is happening, when you start thinking this way, as you said, labeling this way, so then you become a conscious learner instead of a unconscious learner. Okay, and okay, so that now is the end of discussion of all the bechinos. Okay, here's our little Visio chart. We had all the 25. Again, these tools I'll make available to you. Either Avi, you can write to Avi or write to me, it doesn't matter. Visio you can use without having Visio. They have a little program that Microsoft gives out so that you can read Visio files. You can't edit them, but you can look at them, so you can use this freely. Again, there's a lot of detail here, but with a little thought, we can put it all together. Okay, now we're going to go to the last part of the book, and as I said, the first part is talking about understanding the Gemara. The second part is talking about analyzing the Gemara, and now we're going to talk about presentation. How do you present the material? Say you wanted to write the Rambam, alibi, we could do it. But if you, or you're even going to write a chibur, you're going to write it, or you're going to give a talk. So how do you organize your information so that the person who's in the audience is going to get the most out of your talk in the easiest manner? So that's going to be the last part. It's going to be presentation. So first he's going to talk about Kedima va'echor, what comes first and what comes second, and then he's going to give us a nice exposition on Seder, how to present your information. So let's get into that. Okay. You should know that precedent and consequence has three different types. The first type of before and after is called temporal, before and after in time. Hasheni, the second type, is called sichli. Intellectually, things follow before other things. And the third one are called tivi. In nature, in chush, in the physical world, there's also things that precede other things or follow other things. Let him now will spell it out. Notice Ramchal always gives you the general three principles, and then he goes and he spells them out. Zmani, temporal priority. It's something that comes before something else in time. Sichli, hu ma shelo yagdim b'zman ela b'ma'ala, shenosa mo kadima b'seichel. It's not something that exists before something else in time, but only because of a certain quality that it has. Derech mashal, hamelech va'am, hamelech kodem va'am ma'uchar. The king and the people. So when you're presenting, you expect that the king should be first and then the people should be second. If you see a text that has it the opposite way, that's a good reason to have a kasha, because it defies the rule of Kedima v'Achor in Seichel. I have a nice example of this. It said that Yitzhak, a few parshas ago, went into the field to daven because Rivka was a kara, his wife was a kara, she was barren. So the Rabbeinu Bachya says, l'chara, should have been the opposite way around. It should have been that because she was barren, he went into the field and davened, you see. It's a question of an order in Seichel, really. That the Zman really wasn't the important thing here. Is that really in Seichel, really the problem comes before the davening. He says, Chas v'sholem, that you should think that a tzaddik davens because of the things that he needs. He davens to relate to Hashem. Mamela, of course, when he's davening, he asks Hashem for all his needs. But the first thing is really for Hashem. So that was an analysis of the pasuk based on Kedima Nachor and Seichel. Derech Mashal. We said a melech and am the am is good. Now, we say ha'elyonim kodmin l'tachtonim. If you're presenting or if you're reading something, you expect that the higher things are mentioned before the lower things. Say you want to give a list of you want to give a list of the parts of creation. So you should really start with Kodesh Baruch Hu Malachim. That's creation. I forget about Kodesh Baruch, but the Malachim, and then you start with man, and you start with animals, and you go down to plants, and then you go to inanimate objects. So that would be the proper order. Another example is, for instance, in Agamara, it says Shor Bo Maven Hever, right? So if you investigate that, it doesn't seem to be any logical order there, because the shore is an animal, the boar is a whole, and Maba is either man or another part of the animal, okay? And then you have Aish. So the order there is problematic. We'd expect you go from the high, start with man, and then go to animal, and then go to fire, and then end up in pit. But it doesn't go that way. So because of that breaking of the rule of priority, so all the Rishonim now have a big problem. And they start talking about it, okay? But their problem was the problem of priority. The priorities were not ordered properly. The last one, there's certain priorities, physical priorities. Okay, what does that mean? Teva. We expect that if you're reading something, so the order should follow the order of the natural order of things. We're talking about something physical. Who mi shemitziyaso talui b'mitziyas chavero. It's something whose reality, it depends upon something else. Afal pi shiyim so'uhu shnehem kiyachad. Even though we see them simultaneously, we know that one thing precedes the other. Also, shehusiva lechavero. We know that one thing is really the cause of the other thing, even though they're both here. He'll give an example in 1 second. And that's called the Yikara Kodem, Also, shehusiva lechavero. Yikara Kodem shouldn't be there. Okay, the Hamasubav is the Ma'uchar. Okay, I'm surprised I need an example. For instance, when we see the sun and the light of day, so the sun and the light are existing simultaneously. We see them both together, but we know that the sun is the cause of the light. So in Teva, it is before the light, even though in Zman you see them simultaneously. Okay. So that's his little exposition on priority. Very, very important when you read. These are all, as we learned in the Darkei Gemara, in Diktuk Haloshen, these aspects are going to be very, very important. What comes first and what comes second. And if the rules are broken, the natural rules of priority are broken, whether there's man, sichli, or teva, then we're going to have to ask Akasha, why is the order not correct? Okay. Also, if you present things, you should be presenting things correctly. Also, we'll see in a second. Now he says like this. Uma shi ozor et el haskala izagado umakela esatara huaseda. Something that helps study greatly and makes it much easier to do a difficult, to study a difficult topic is called Seder. Vohu ben lilmod ben melamed. Seder is so important whether you're learning or whether you're teaching. Ki hine bezeh mesakel es hamasil lefnei haseichel shiyochel leches bedarche yizbonenus bli mikshalos. Seder is something that takes away a lot of stumbling blocks in front of the mind and makes you able to understand things without those blocks. This is very, very, very critical. We're going to start this, and of course we'll go on to the next week. It's very, very important in presentation. Things that are presented well, like all the books I'm reading of the Ramchal, are a pleasure to learn. Things that are written in a confusing way or expressed in a confusing way, of course, is very, very difficult to put together. Now, v'im lomedhu yasig ha muskalos shehu mevakesh al nachon. And if he's learning also, if he has the proper seder, then he'll be able to learn things correctly. V'im milamedhu yivore ma shebadato lebarim beyor maspik v'yakel el halomed mimenu v'hasig es shi al midehu. And as a teacher, you'll be able to clarify what's in your mind and to explain in a sufficient way, in an easy way, what you're trying to bring over to the student that he should grasp. Now he explains the Ikar Sederhu Shlosha. There's three basic principles that we're going to discuss in Seder. One is called presentation of the Seder, the Sidur. The second one is definitions, Gedorim, and the third one is divisions. So because this topic is so important and large, I'm going to leave it for next week, okay? And we'll stop at this point. Again, I understand there's loads of information here, a lot of new information, a lot of new concepts. They're very simple concepts when you think about them, but as Ramchal said, his greatness is that he organized these concepts in a systematic tool. They're not, I remember when I first came to a certain yeshiva, so the books were all over the place. Now, someone felt that was an interesting way of having a discussion. But for me, it was totally chaotic, and I couldn't understand, where anything was. In Bayit Vagan, where I live, we have a wonderful Gabbai, and he's at the other extreme. There is no book that is not numbered and out of place. It just doesn't exist. But what's so beautiful, and there's also, of course, a chart, so you can find everything very easily. And that's very, very pleasant because you know exactly where everything is, and if you don't, you just look at the chart, look at the color number, and go into the room, and you're there. So there's no doubt about it. It's an important, critical aspect in learning and in teaching. And Bezrat Hashem next week we'll we'll delve into that.